Hey everyone, Matt Pisarcik from RazorEmporium.com coming at you today all about straight razors. How to buy a straight razor. So it happens all the time. A customer comes into our lobby or we get a phone call or email and someone has seen one of these in a movie or video, or they have an image in their head of their grandfather using one and they are just like, I want to do this. I want a straight razor shave. And that's cool. That is so exciting. It is a fantastic and big journey you are ready to embark on. So let's give you a couple pointers about how to go about buying a straight razor. The first question I would ask you is, why do you want to get started with a straight razor? Are you currently using an electric or cartridge and you want to make the switch to something more, permanent, long-term? Are you someone who's been using a double edge for a long time and you're already kind of halfway in the wet shaving world and you want to go all the way? Are you someone who's been using a shavette, or maybe your barber has been trimming your neck with a shavette or disposable straight razor, and you're wanting to take the leap into the real thing? All these are good reasons to think about it, but you should have your eyes wide open when you think about this. I would say if you're coming from the world of double-edged razors, you're definitely in a better position to make this leap because you've already learned about angle and pressure. You've been used to holding a razor and you have to make the angle with your hand and then you have to use just the right amount of pressure. That's really great. If you've been coming from the world of electric razors or cartridge razors where the razor is kind of thinking for you and you can just kind of swipe at your face and the pivoting head kind of makes the angle for you and there's really not a element of pressure, that may be a harder bridge to cross for you. If you've got the idea in your head and you just want to take the next leap, and maybe you are into survival things or knives or fine cutlery, yeah, cool, that's another good reason to get into this, but just have your eyes wide open. There are people that want to go down the path of the daily driver and they're going to do this every single day, and there's some other people who maybe want to use it occasionally, maybe like a Sunday driver kind of a thing. So definitely know why you're walking into it in the first place. I would always say that straight razor shaves take longer, they require more maintenance and upkeep, so you're going to have to make sure to strop it before and after, you're going to have to make sure to not let it be exposed to too much moisture, so it's probably going to have to find a home outside of your bathroom, and it's going to have to be maintained regularly. So it's going to have to be sent to someone who does honing like us or another reputable vendor who does honing, or you're going to have to invest in honing stones and on top of that learn how to hone. So I just want you to have your eyes wide open about the why to get into it. The next thing you're going to walk into is the wonderful wide world of straight razors in so many different types. There are ones that are big, there's ones that are small, there's ones that look scary with a square point, there's ones that have barber notches in the tip of them, there's ones that have more of a soft round point. I would say first and foremost, they're all going to shave you. They're all going to cut. It just comes down to kind of the difficulty level. I've used the example many, many times and I'll say it again, that learning to use a straight razor is kind of like learning to drive a car. And maybe your first experience driving a car shouldn't be a monster truck. So maybe a giant 7/8 inch, chopper with a barber notch in it may not be the first thing you want to grab for. It's like grabbing a lifted 4x4 for your first vehicle. You may want to go for that more comfortable four-door sedan, which I would describe as the round point, smaller blade, like a 5/8 inch style blade. Another factor to consider, and you're going to be inundated with this, is the grind. What's the grind? The grind is when you look kind of down the edge, and you're looking at these two sides, and you're looking at how hollowed out are they. There are some razors that are more like an axe, so they're kind of more like a triangular shape, not a lot of grinding, and they're more what's called like a wedge or a near wedge shape. More mass, easier to go through your hair, yes, but also a little bit harder to learn to handle, and it's going to feel a little more aggressive for you for your first time. Then you have stuff like this. This is like a quarter grind, so a quarter of the material has been ground out. It's definitely easier from a wedge or near wedge, but it's nothing like a hollow ground. So I brought one of these. This is a vintage Philharmonica, and you can see just how skinny that is and how much steel has been removed away. So the more ground, or like a full hollow grind or 3/4 hollow, whatever, is going to be a little bit easier to maintain the angle on, a little easier to kind of get the feel of, and so that's why we usually recommend the full hollow grind for beginners and a smaller size. Both the ones I grabbed today for the video are both 7/8, big choppers. Jack it to the chopper, right? But having a smaller blade is, again, like that four-door sedan versus the 4x4 big lifted truck. Easier to maneuver, easier to get around, especially if you're going on your mustache area, your chin, behind your ear. It's going to be a little easier to get around the corners, like a little sports car compared to like parking a big truck, right? And then in terms of the point, Of course, you can start with a square point like this, but it is easier to nick yourself with a square point because that very, very tip is sharp. And if you're coming on the side, I've done it many times. I've clipped my earlobe here multiple times with a square point because it just, you're trying to get right in here and bam, you just get this little tiny sliver, and of course lots of blood in your face and skull areas, so they always bleed a lot. Definitely want to have a styptic pencil on hand for your first couple of straight razor shaves, but something to consider. That's why, again, the age-old advice is a 5/8 carbon steel hollow grind. Which brings me to my other point, carbon steel versus stainless steel. 99% of all the straight razors out there are carbon steel, like these guys here. If you look into high-end knives, like for cutlery purposes, kitchen knives, they're almost always also carbon steel. And the reason is carbon steel is a lot easier to maintain. It's a softer metal, it's easier to sharpen. It's also going to feel a little bit more forgiving, kind of more buttery than a stainless steel. Stainless steel does have the advantage of being stainless, not stain-proof. You have to still take care of it, but it's going to feel a little bit more harsh, a little more brittle. If you have super coarse beard, maybe stainless steel is a good idea to think about, but I'd always say start with carbon steel. The caveat, of course, with that is yes, it's easier to maintain, easier to take care of, but it's going to require you to make sure it's oiled, it's not in the bathroom setting, it's not left in a steamy, humidity bathroom. That's like bad news for carbon steel. It's going to want to absorb that and you're going to get rusting really easily. So make sure it's dry and get it out of your bathroom. Maybe put it on a counter, maybe a dresser, whatever, vanity, out of the bathroom area so it doesn't have rusting starting to develop on it. Another kind of thing to consider is scale material. I brought these two because they had different scales. This, of course, has like a rosewood handmade handle here. And this guy has more of like a injection molded plastic, or we call acrylic. Acrylic is certainly probably the most popular. There's also other materials like carbon fiber, there's bone, there's horn. There's lots of things to consider. I would say that by and large, it's easiest to get started with something that's acrylic. Of course, wood is also great, but you'd want to make sure it's a wood, like a hardwood with lots of oil in it. So again, it's not going to crack and split on you. The last thing you want to be doing is maintaining the wood on this razor. You really should go for a wood that's more stabilized. Maybe it's been infused with epoxy, and it's able to be around a wet setting a lot more. And lastly, another point to consider is new or vintage. I brought a brand new straight razor that we actually do custom grind in-house, and then I brought a vintage one. This is a Philharmonica, again, from Spain from like the 1960s. They both have pros and cons. I will tell you that the vintage razors are popular for a reason. It's kind of like vintage cars or vintage, handguns or watches. There's a certain quality that comes around from the old world. I'll say this, I've said it many times, the year is 1900. There's 1,000 cutlery companies making straight razors because that's how everyone was shaving. So competition always breeds a better product. In today's market, you have a lot fewer people making straight razors, and so I would say the quality can still be really high, but just know that they're not being made in mass and they're more artisan and custom. There are companies like Dovo and Thiers-Essard and Boker that are making them in bigger amounts for sure, but it's nothing like the heyday. Sometimes even the quality of steel, man, like the old English Wade and Butchers and Joseph Allen's, that English silver steel was absolutely amazing. What they were mining at the time, a lot of people say some of the best steel ever for straight razors, and there's nothing like it today. So I would say that maybe for your first straight razor, cool to get a production razor, but if you enjoy it, you really want to turn back the clock, get in the Back to the Future DeLorean and go check out some really cool vintage razors because some of the steel, some of the grinds are unbelievable. Well, this was a quick down and dirty video today. We have another video all about kind of the more detailed work on straight razors, and we even have top 10 tips to avoid for your first straight razor shave. Go check those videos out. If you have more questions that we reviewed today, that's totally cool. You can tell me in the comments if you have questions. I'm happy to answer some more. You can also talk to a professional. Talk to us, talk to another straight razor vendor. And if you talk to a straight razor vendor and they have no answers for you and they don't know the difference between a 5/8 carbon steel and a 7/8 stainless steel, you're talking to the wrong person. Talk to somebody else, because this is definitely one of the more deep dive knowledge subjects out there is straight razors. It's easy to talk about double edge. It's harder to talk to someone who really knows what they know know about straight razors. So, but either way, if you do want to go down that path, it's a fun, cool world, and it's full of kind of a lot of excitement. It's like driving a stick shift vehicle. You are fully engaged, man. When you're holding one of these up to your face, you know you're awake in the morning, and there's nothing that's going to be on autopilot for sure. You are fully engaged in your shaving experience. So just have that as a piece of knowledge. I know a lot of guys that just want to do it on Sundays only because they need more time. They want to really relax and enjoy the whole process. It takes 45 minutes, whatever. So have your eyes wide open if you go down this path. Either way, if you have more questions about straight razors, leave me a comment below. And if you do, you're interested to win this, one of these cool Razor Emporium black and blue t-shirts. That's all I got today. Please like this video if you liked it. Share it with someone who needs to see it. And we'll see you next time at Razor Emporium for all things vintage shaving. Thanks, guys.